Next, we are going to implement the functionality to select a color. So you can see we have a bunch of colors to choose from, and then we can use that for the color of that particular card. All right, we can then update that, and for now it will not store it, but basically the idea is that the card itself will then have a top layer here, which will then say, okay, that this is a blue card, for example. All right, but this is for now what we're going to implement. So this a little additional dialog here. All right, to get started, I think it makes sense for you to just download the latest strings and dimensions file. So here, dimensions that we're going to add are going to be the following. So item label color height, label color margin, color selected image margin, and so forth. Dialog list, card view elevation and corner radius, and so forth. Okay, so just download the latest dimensions file and also the latest strings file, because we are going to use one string here as well. Of course, you can also just type in this string because it's not that much effort. So it's the string select label color. Okay, so what we're going to need is a new layout. So I'm going to create a new layout resource file, which I'm going to call item label color. And it will be a frame layout as the root element. So let's create that one. And inside of this frame layout, I would like to use a new vector asset. So let's use the tick box. Actually, it's a check. This one here. I want to use the check, and I'm going to call this one IC vector white done 24dp and finish. So inside of this frame layout, I would like to use it. So let me show what this code is going to look like. So basically what we have is a frame layout which matches parent and width and wraps content and height. Then the foreground is set to attribute selectable image or item background. Then we have a view here, which I call view main, which has a width of match parent, and the height is item label color height, which is 40 density pixels. Then we have a layout margin, which I'm going to set to 5 density pixels, and the color accent is used as the background color for now. Of course, we want to adjust the color accordingly. And then we have this image view, which is basically this tick box. It has an ID, IV, selected color. It wraps its content and height and width, and it's center vertically and gravitated. So this means that it will basically look like what you can see here. So we have this little icon here on the right hand side. This is the selected check, which means that this is the color that we have selected. So the user can select multiple different, or from multiple different colors pretty much, right? So we have this blue color, for example, and we of course want to adjust that for the different colors that we want to use. The visibility is set to gone for this image view, and in the tools we see it, of course. Okay, so that is the individual item for the colors that we want to be able to use. But then we will need another XML file, which I'm just gonna call dialog list. So here, dialog underscore list .xml, and what that will do is it will be a frame layout also, and it will contain the following code. So let's look at it. You can of course also download this file if you don't want to type everything in here. So we use this frame layout which matches the parent. Then it's a card view which has a linear layout inside of it, in which we have a text view, and a recycler view. Okay, so basically if we look at it, we have select, and then we have the separator, and underneath we have a recycler view, which we cannot see much of yet. Okay, this recycler view should be full of item label color XML files, so full of these kind of colors, and then the user can use the one that he wants to use for the card. So basically the dialog list is this card here with the select label color text and the separator, and underneath we have this recycler view with a bunch of item label colors, which are the colors here that we can then select from. So this is how they are linked together. And of course, as we are working with a recycler view, we also need to have an adapter. So let's go ahead and create a new adapter inside of our adapters folder. So here, new Kotlin file. It's going to be a class called label color list items adapter. Pretty long name, but that's basically what it is. And the information that we need to pass in here is the context. So private val context, which will be of type context. Then, and I think it makes sense to put that into multiple lines. So we need to import context here, Android context. Then we have the list, private var list, which is an array, a list of strings, which are basically the color codes. And then the private val m selected color, which will be a string. Now, as this is an adapter, we inherit from recycler view dot adapter of type recycler view dot view holder. All right. So this is how it's going to look like overall. Label color items adapter, which is a recycler view adapter. And then, of course, we need to implement the functions that are missing. So he wants me to make this abstract. That's not what I want. But I want to implement the members. So I hover over class, implement members. And then let's implement those members here. Okay, so we have on create view holder, so get item count and so forth. So let's first start with the easiest one, get item count. Let's get rid of that one or of the to do, and let's just say return list.size. Then on create view holder, well, the thing is, as we are going to work with an item click listener and with our class view holder, let's just implement them real quick. So private class my view holder view, which is going to be a recycler view dot view holder, and we pass in the view. All right. So we need to put import view here, import Android view, and then as we want to be able to click on the individual elements, so let's add an on-click listener, which is going to be an interface called onItemClickListener, where we have the onClick function, which will need the position and the color, which is a string. So we need to know which color we pressed on. All right, so now let's implement this onCreate view holder here, which will return my view holder. That's the one that we have added at the bottom, and it should return my view holder. So there, what I want to return is layout inflator from context dot inflate, and then r dot layout dot item label color, parent, and false. So we need to import r here, and then we can use item label color, which is this XML file. So we inflate this XML file inside of our view holder for every single list element. Okay, so that's the idea behind this line of code. We've done that multiple times already. Now on bind view holder. So what do we want to bind inside of the view holder? Well, first of all, we will get the individual item that we look at, which is the item at the position of our list that we get passed. So the list of colors, so to speak. And then we can check if the holder is of type myViewHolder. If that's the case, then we can go ahead and design it. So item view dot view main set background color, which will be color dot parse color out of the item. Okay, so what's happening here? View main is this part here of our item label color. So if we look at it, it's this view. Then we set the background color of that view based on the color parse color item. So item, what is item? Item is the individual item of our list, and then we parse it into a color. So if it's something like hash FFFFF, so 6 Fs, then that will be, for example, white. If it's a bunch of zeros, then it will be, for example, black. Okay, so this here is passed to us as a string, and then it makes a color out of it. So this parse color makes then the color out of it. All right, on top of that, what I want to do is I want to make this item view, or this image view, better said, this one here, this tick box, I want this to make this visible or invisible depending on whether the item is the selected color or not. All right, so let's go back to our adapter. We can here check if item is equal to m selected color, then we want to make this IV selected color visible is view dot visible, and otherwise we want to make it invisible. So basically this part here is equal to gone. And then of course every single individual element should be clickable. So if we click on green, we want to have green. If we click on blue, and so forth. All right, so let's make them clickable as well. So holder dot item view dot set on click listener. If on item click listener is not equal null, then I want to set it or set an on click for it. So we need to create a variable for this, of course. So let's create a global variable here on top of the on create view holder. So on item click listener will be a variable which will be of type on item click listener nullable, which I'm going to assign null to. Okay, and now we can check, is it null? If it's not null, then go ahead and set the on item click listener dot on click with the current position, and then we also need to pass in the item. So this item, which is part of list position, which is, well, position is an integer, but list.position will give us a string. So here, a string of the array list. Because if we look at it, we can see on click expects an integer and a color, and that's what we pass here. We pass the position and the item, which is a color, or a string, which then will be a color. All right. So next we need to create this dialog, because you can see once we click on it, it opens up this dialog, right? It's not a new activity that we are populating or anything. It's just this little dialog, so this pop-up. And if you want to use dialogs, well, you need to create them. So let's create a new class here, which will be inside of a new directory or package, and I'm going to call this one dialogs. All right, so let's create a new Kotlin file or class, and I'm going to call this one label color list dialog. And this one will be an abstract class. And abstract classes cannot be used to create objects from them. Okay, so classes cannot be instantiated, so you cannot create objects of an abstract class. However, you can inherit subclasses from them. Okay, so I don't want to be able to create objects from them, but I want to directly access the elements of it. So here I'm going to need the context, then the private var list of array list strings, and then I want to know the selected color. So private val m selected color, which should be a string. By the way, we also need the title. So private var, or maybe val title, should be a string of an empty string. By the way, this one should be a var as well, so that we can change it. So it will be an empty string in each cases. And we need to import context so that we can use it. Now this whole class should inherit from the dialog class, because, well, it should be a dialog, right? And if you want to use the dialog class to inherit from it, you need to pass in the context and you need to import it. So now we have dialog and context. All right, so at this point we can now implement this class. So private var. So first of all, I want to create an object of my adapter, which for now will be empty. So color list items adapter nullable, which I'm gonna assign null to for now. All right, and then I need an on create here. So on create, what do I want to do here? Well, I want to create a view, which will be using the layout inflator dot from context dot inflate r dot, and here we need to import r as well, but this will allow us to inflate our own layout that we created. So it's inside of the layout folder and it's called dialog list. Dialog list. So let's import r here so that we can use our dialog list. And we also need to pass in the root when we call inflate, and we're just gonna pass null here. Okay, so we call a layout inflator, we create a new view out of this, right? So based on this dialog list XML file that we created. Okay, so now we have this new view, and we can now set the content, set content view to be the view that we just created there. I'm gonna set the cancelable on touch outside to true. So once we click next to it, you can see the dialog just disappears. So this is done by this set cancel on touch outside. And I'm gonna set cancelable to true so that it can be canceled. And I'm gonna set up a recycler view, which we need to create a function for. So let's create a function which will take care of the recycler view. Private fun set up recycler view, which we need to pass in a view. And let's import view so that we can use it. Android.view. And here we can then design the view. So we can just say view.tv underscore title, or how did I call it? TV title. I think that was it. Text view title. This one here. Dot text should be the title. And by this I mean the title that is passed to me. So to the label colored list dialog class. So here, currently it's empty, but we can override it, of course. Then view.rv list. So the list here, if we look at it, it's this recycler view list, RV list. Let's set that layout manager to be a linear layout manager, which also needs a context. and then we can set the adapter. So let's set the adapter to be label color items adapter, which needs a context. And what else does it need? The list and the selected color. So let's pass in the list and the selected color. And then we can set the adapter of our RV list. So here, view RV list dot adapter should be the adapter that we prepared. All right, now every single adapter needs to have an on-click listener, right? So adapter dot on item click listener should be a new object of label color list items adapter dot on item click listener, and here we can implement it. Okay, so we're creating a new object of label color items adapter on item click listener, which is this on item click listener interface. And now we need to override its events, so implement its members. So override on click, and here once we click on the button, what do we want to do? Well, we want to dismiss this dialog, and we want to say that we have selected an item. Okay, so we need to create this additional function, protected abstract fun on item selected. So here we can then implement what should happen once we selected an item. Okay, and we need to pass in the color of the item that we selected. Okay, so here we just say it's abstract so that we can later on implement it. You know, our class is abstract as well, so we can now create abstract functions in here, and it's protected, so it can only be used inside of this project. Or yeah, that's pretty much it, right? So here I can just say on item selected should be called with the color that is passed to us as a string once we click on the on the individual item of our adapter. So here, this is our recycler view. We use the adapter for it. We click on one item, and that is pretty much what is then called. So the on item selected, and the dialog itself, as you can see, is also dismissed once I click on a color. Okay, and now there's only this function to be left to be called here, and we need to pass in the view. And luckily we prepared a view already, which is our layout inflator dialog list. So at this point, I think we're going to make a pause because it's still a little bit to set up. So we still need to do all of the setting up in the card details activity itself, which will then of course use our label color list dialog. So you can see we created the adapter to be then displayed inside of the dialog. So we create a new dialog in the way that you can see here. So we pass in the context, the list that we want to display in the dialog. That's not necessarily required if you ever want to create a dialog, but in our case we need that because our dialog needs to display this list. Then I want to have a title for the list, and I want to know which color is selected so that I can then make this color specifically different. So I can make a tick box here, for example, which we don't have at that point yet. Even after finishing the next video, we will not have that yet. But overall, you can see we first of all need to have an adapter, which is our label color items adapter that we created before. And then in the on create, we can inflate a view, which is the dialog list view, which we prepared before, this XML file. Then we can set that as the content view. We make it touch outside true, so we can cancel it once we touch outside. Then we set up the recycler view. And now we need to do a lot of coding inside of card details activity to actually add the functionality. It's not that much, but still we need to do that in the next video. All right, so see you there.